Your emotional guidance system is kind of meant to be like your body's GPS. It's meant to help you navigate away from things that make you feel bad and towards things that make you feel good. But especially when we find ourselves in relationships with narcissists, it seems like that system goes a little haywire, doesn't it? Well, I've recently learned something about the emotional guidance system, and what I've learned is that most of us have it all wrong. It's not the guidance system that's off, it's actually how we're interpreting it. The truth is so incredibly simple, but so incredibly life-altering at the same time. And I swear I'm not exaggerating. So stay tuned to hear all about it. Welcome to the Common Ego community. My name is Christina, and today we're talking about how that emotional guidance system works with a narcissist. And this is part of a 3-part series, actually. So today we're going to talk about how the emotional guidance system works with a narcissist. And in the next video, we're going to talk about how to leverage that guidance system in recovery. Because most of us here have had experiences, at least one experience, with a narcissist that has kind of rocked our world a little bit. And in the 3rd video in this series, we're going to talk about the ego and how it likes to get in the way. Now, the ego plays an important role, but sometimes it does stand in the way of our own happiness. It keeps us in those old patterns that are not serving us anymore. So stay tuned for those videos. They're going to be coming out within the next week. And for today, we're going to cover the emotional guidance system in detail because that is kind of the foundation of all of this. So what is the emotional guidance system? You may know it as the fight or flight reaction, and that is definitely a big part of it. That is actually one component of the emotional guidance system, and probably the most important because it's the one that tells us that something's wrong and we need to make a change. But the problem with the fight or flight reaction is that we don't always know what it's telling us. Oftentimes we misinterpret it, and that leads to distrust in our own guidance system, our own intuition and gut feeling. We should never distrust our own guidance, our own intuition, and our own gut feelings, because that truly is the guidance system that is important. We can always trust that if we know what it's telling us. If you're familiar with Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction, you may have heard the term emotional guidance system before. And it's something that I came across in that material, and I have to admit for a long time I really didn't understand it. I kind of understood the basics, that we should trust our gut. We should trust what our bodies are telling us. But I didn't understand what our bodies are actually telling us. And I want to talk about that today and hopefully clear up the confusion for you if you were kind of thinking along the same lines that I was. And I really want to share that with this audience because it definitely applies to what happens in a relationship with a narcissist and afterwards. Okay, so before we get to any of this stuff with a narcissist, let's talk about that emotional guidance system and why we distrust it. Things get really confusing because it seems like our emotional guidance system sometimes tells us not to do things that we know are good for us. So if you're about to go on stage and accept a major award, your emotional guidance system might be telling you, something's wrong, something's wrong. You get that fight or flight reaction that you know as anxiety. But let's break this down. What exactly is causing that reaction? Is it the situation? Is it the stage itself? Is it the presenter or the people in the audience? Now, if you break it down, you'll see it's probably not any of those things. It's not any one component of those things. And actually the person sitting in the audience isn't afraid of the whole either. It's only you who's about to get up on stage, and probably everybody else who's about to get up on stage. So it's not the situation, it's not any of the components within the situation. It's not the external reality. It's what's going on within you. And what's going on is that this situation is triggering a belief within you, a false belief. This is the important part. It's a false belief that it is triggering within you. So if you're afraid to go up on that stage, you might be afraid that you're going to trip, that you're going to lose control over your body, that people are going to laugh at you. You're afraid because you're feeling insecure. that is all this reaction is telling you. This reaction is telling you that you have a belief in that moment about yourself that is not true. And your spirit self, your inner being, at your core, you know it's not true. But it's the ego that's there for a reason. It's trying to protect you. It's trying to say, no, 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 this is scary. All these bad things could happen. And we're not prepared for this. This is going to hurt us, is what the ego is saying. But your inner being is saying, no, it's not. You're good. You have every reason to be confident. You've got this. Another thing your ego might be saying is, you're not good enough. You know, you don't deserve this. You don't really deserve this. There's all kinds of stories that the ego can tell you that are not true. And whenever you have that feeling, whenever you have that anxiety, that fight or flight, it's usually has to do with one of those stories that isn't true. Now, on the flip side, when you have good feelings inside, happiness, it's usually related to a story that is true. Now, stop for a minute and think about it. Think about your life and your situation. And I have a feeling I know what you're thinking because I was there too. But wait, what about this? And what about that? And there's so many scenarios that you can break down, but I've been through a great number of them. And there's not one that I can break down without coming to a core belief that is either true or not true. So back to the narcissist and what they do in the relationship. They would like to think that they have the power to make you feel small. They don't. They have the power to trigger false beliefs within you. That is what they have the power to do. From there, it is you or I who take it and kind of run with it. So you have this false belief and you have somebody who's validating your false belief. And so that false belief gets stronger and you believe it more and therefore it hurts more. With the more conviction you have with your false beliefs, the more your body is going to tell you no. Your body is going to fight it. It's going to say no. So the more you believe something that is not true with conviction, the more it's going to hurt, the more emotional pain you're going to feel. So the unfortunate exception to this is when you have a narcissistic parent, because in our formative years, we do get a lot of our personal beliefs about ourselves from our parents and our environment that we grew up in. So that's where, whether you had a narcissistic parent or not, that's where a lot of these false beliefs about yourself come from. And a lot of them come from society too. This isn't about blame. So in the case of a narcissistic parent, they're creating a false belief in you and then they're triggering it in you. And then as you grow up in your adult relationships, you will meet other people and other situations that trigger those same false beliefs and make you feel bad. They make you feel insecure and anxious. But really at its root is that false belief that either somebody instilled upon you or it was just a situation that led you to that false conclusion. So here's an example. A narcissist can take credit for making you feel stupid. You know, they can get their kicks out of making you feel stupid. But if you're pretty sure that you're smarter than that person, it's not really going to have a big effect on you. If you're confident in your intelligence, especially your intelligence over the person who's trying to tear you down, it's not going to hurt that much. But if you're in a relationship with a very intelligent narcissist and you don't feel confident in your intellectual abilities and they continually tear you down and they try to make you feel dumb, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt more because you believe it. It's a false belief that we all kind of have that. See, that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with having these false beliefs. We all have them because there's always going to be somebody who's smarter than you. There's always going to be somebody who's thinner than you, prettier than you, more handsome. There's always going to be somebody, unless you're a narcissist and then you're perfect. But we all have these false beliefs that, you know, we're not good enough or, you know, not pretty enough or whatever. We all have them. And so it doesn't always take much to trigger them. But once a narcissist finds those triggers and they see your emotional response to it, they know they're onto something and they just keep going. And then they keep finding more and more and more triggers. So if they were to insult your intelligence and you didn't respond because you're like, oh, I'm smarter than you, they're not going to keep doing that. They find the things that trigger you, and those are your own false beliefs about yourself. And they keep at it until those false beliefs grow and grow and grow and become stronger. And that's why you end up feeling worse about yourself at the end of the relationship than you did in the beginning of the relationship. Now, there's a chance that some of this is going to trigger some of you, that you might think that it's blame shifting. And that's not what I promise you, that's not what this is. Narcissists are emotionally abusive people. They do intentionally trigger you, and they do intentionally tear you down. What they're doing is not right, and there's no excuse for it. But my purpose in sharing this information about the emotional guidance system is to help you reclaim your power. Because in itself, when you know how this system works, it's extremely empowering, whether you're dealing with a narcissist or not. Because whenever you feel bad and you can pinpoint that false belief, it's confirmation. It's confirmation that you're wrong. Maybe you're in a relationship with a narcissist and the narcissist is sleeping with somebody else. And you have that feeling. You have a terrible, terrible feeling. But at its root, you're feeling, well, I'm not good enough. And you feel bad, right? You feel really bad because it's really, really, really not true. It's confirmation that whatever you're feeling is wrong. So you can go ahead and just stop believing it. Easier said than done, I know. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that with some tips on how to kind of turn that around in the next video. But for now, my hope is that this knowledge will help you reclaim your power. It's not the narcissist who ever had the power. It was always you. It was always you, and you could always look within to see what's going on. And now that you have this information, no one can ever do this to you again. Not to say that you won't be triggered. Certainly you will. We all will. But you'll know what it means, and you can go from there. And when you learn to pay attention to your emotional triggers and the situations and the people that are triggering them, triggering those false beliefs, not only can you work on your own false beliefs, but you can clearly see where you're being triggered. So if it's one person who keeps triggering you, triggering these false beliefs, then you can be pretty certain that's an emotionally abusive person and you need to get away from them. I think that covers the basics of the emotional guidance system that you need to know to understand the next level, which is using it to help you recover. And I have some really interesting things to share in that video, so keep an eye out for it. For now, if you like this video, please let me know by hitting that like button, and I would love to know what you think about the emotional guidance system and how it has worked for you in your relationship with a narcissist and beyond. So let me know in the comments. And if you want to see the next videos in this series, be sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you can be notified as soon as they come out. And I will see you next time.